Okay, friends, so we can get started in Hero's Pose, and if you want, you could take your block and you could slide it on level 1 or 2 underneath your sit bones. If Hero's Pose is not in the cards for your ankles or for your knees, no worries, just bring yourself to a cross-legged position. We'll just be here for our breath warm-up, and then we'll move off of it. So I want you to get nice and tall through your spine if you haven't yet. It might feel nice to close your eyes, press your hands to the top of your thighs, and on an inhale, lift up nice and tall in space, roll your shoulder heads out, and exhale, just get into that length, feel into that length. And then I'm gonna work us through a 3-part breath, Shavasana Pranayama. And then this is really nice because we're gonna open our breathing capacity up completely. So just begin by exhaling all the way down to empty. From the bottom of your breath, inhale to the low belly for 1, 2, 3, and hold. Breathe into your mid-abdomen and your mid-back for 1, 2, 3, and hold. Fill all the way up into the chest, all the way to the shoulders. Once you've got that full breath, just relax around it. And then exhale for 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome, friends. Let's do that again. Breathe in, low belly, low back. Hold there. Breathe now into your mid-abdomen, up into your mid-back. Hold it there. Fill all the way into the chest, all the way to the shoulders. Once you've got that full breath, just hold and relax. If you want, try sipping in a little more air. And then exhale nice and slow from the top all the way down to empty. From our Shavasana Pranayama, we'll move into Ujjayi Pranayama, so the breath of victory. Inhaling through the nose from the bottom all the way up to the top, slow and deep. Then exhaling back out the nose and using those muscles in the back of the throat to control that breath. And so that word, victory, that breath of victory, this is not the victory that comes from conquering. This is not the victory that comes from overtaking or from pushing down. This is the victory of life, right? We are inhaling that beautiful oxygen that keeps our lives going. We're exhaling, letting go of that carbon dioxide, giving it back to the plants as they give it back to us. So as we go through this class today, let's stay in that victory of life, that victory of love and of living. As always, please, friends, just take what works for me and leave the rest behind. Your breath gets to be your guide for your practice. So just stay with those nice deep inhales and those nice long exhales. So we're just going to move out of the Hero's Pose. Take a seat on your sit bones, extend your legs out in front of you, and give some nice movement through your ankles. Pump out through your knees. And just as we change from that Hero's Pose to here, see if you can stay with that breath. We'll leave the right leg extended in space. And then just grab your left leg and give a cradle of your left leg in towards your body. You can use your hands. We could also go in closer with elbows or forearms. If your spine is curling in, see if we can lengthen that spine up and back. And then to create a seated twist, we'll plant the left foot outside of the right thigh. Leave your right leg extended or bend your right knee so the heel is to the outside of the left sit bone. Our twist is taking us over towards that left side of the room, so you can wrap your right arm to the outside of the leg or the elbow to the outside of the knee. The left hand behind you, inhale, lengthen up tall. And on the exhale, twist from center and take the gaze back across the shoulder. Hold your body in this twist and allow those inhales to create space that you release into on the exhales. You stay right where you're at, or to stretch out the left side of your neck, just tilt your right ear forward to your right shoulder. And then as you're holding the head on that tilt, you could lift your chin up in space to get to the front edge of your neck, or let your chin come down to find the back edge of the neck, using that breath to help release any tension we find. Take an inhale to lift your head up tall, gazes to the left, and on your exhale, just twist from center. And one more time, the gaze back across the shoulder, get all the way down to empty. And then we can release back forward in space. Uncross the legs, get them back out in front of you, and just give a little bit of a roll out through the ankles again. And then this time, leaving that left leg extended. Start to grab your right leg and create that cradle. Again, maybe using outstretched hands with your arms, or outstretched arms with your hands to the knee and the foot, or getting closer with your elbows or with your forearms. Checking in with that posture. And then from that warm up for our knee and our hip, just plant the right foot to the outside of your thigh. Leg is extended, the left leg, or bend your knee so the heel is to the outside of your right sit bone. Our twist is opening us over to the right side of the wall, so wrap the left arm or elbow outside of the knee. With the right hand behind you, that inhale just to lengthen up tall. And on your exhale, twist from center and send the gaze back over your shoulder. Hold your body inside of that twist. And again, use that breath to help massage out the body while you're here. As your inhale comes in, it's going to work a little bit against the grain of the twist. But as that exhale releases, it works right with the grain and lets you release right into it. And then you stay right where you're at, or start to tilt that left ear towards the left shoulder, lengthening out the right side of the neck. And as you're holding the head on the tilt, feel free to lift the chin up in space, getting to the front edge of your neck, or allowing the chin to come down, tapping into the back edge of the neck. Awesome. Take an inhale just to lengthen your spine up. Your gaze is to the right. On the exhale, just take one more twist the gaze back across the right shoulder, getting all the way down to empty. And then when we're at the end of the breath and we're coming out of this twist, we're just going to uncross the legs and come forward into a tabletop. Start to work into cat and cow in that tabletop. It could be the inhale that brings you into cow, dropping the belly, lifting the chest and tailbone. And then the exhale that takes you right into your cat, dropping the tailbone, getting that mid back up in space as the head relaxes. Or you might hold on to one of those a little bit longer before you move on to the next one. Totally up to you. Maybe you're rocking a little forward and backwards, or you're letting the shoulders or the hips push out to the sides of the room while you're in those shapes. But allowing the movement of your body to follow the movement of the breath. So as we're taking our time just to work slow and deep with the breathing, our body gets to slow down to the pace of our breath. And then find a neutral, flat back, hands and knees. Start to turn the inside of your right wrist forward in space. Your thumb points out to the right, fingers backwards. And then we're going to give a massage to the hand, the wrist, the forearm. It might be side to side, circles back and forth. If you want to roll the hand out, you can lean back and peel the hand off the mat back to your fingertips. And then just slowly roll it back forward till the heel of the palm lands down into the ground. Stay with your breath while you're working through this. And you can take the back of that right hand into the ground. You don't need a ton of pressure on it. Your fingers can point to the back of the mat as the thumb points inside, and just give a little massage into it. And then keeping that left hand under your shoulder, taking your knees out just a little bit wider than your hips. Twist and reach your right arm straight up in space and give a roll out through your wrist. We'll take this into thread the needle, so just inhaling to extend, and on that exhale, just diving the right arm underneath the left, bringing the side of the head and the outside of the arm down into the mat. Your left hand or forearm can rest or press at your side, helping the body just lean back in towards that shoulder and that arm. You could also tuck the back of the left hand behind you to the outside of your right hip. And unlike child's pose where your hips are going all the way back in space towards your heels, in this one we want the hips all the way up in space above our knees. So the weight of your torso can rest down into the outside of your arm, can rest into the outside of your head. Find that big, deep breathing. Get all the way down to the end of the breath that you're on. Let go of that exhale completely. And then just press your left hand into the mat. Inhale to reach the right arm up tall in space, twisting open to the right side of the room. And on your exhale, we'll come back down. With the hips, or the knees rather, coming back underneath your hips, just turn the inside of that left wrist to the front of the room. And focus now just on warming up your left hand, your left palm, your left fingers. You could use that rollout technique where you're lifting the hand off the mat back to the fingertips and rolling back forward. Or it could be side to side, back and forth, or circles. When you are ready, take the back of that left hand into the ground, fingers pointing to the back of the room, thumb to the inside, and just give a light massage. Stay with that breathing. And then with the right hand under your shoulder, the knees out just a little bit wider than your hips, extend and reach that left arm up in space and give a roll out through your wrist. Take a big inhale to it and then thread the needle on an exhale. Just dive the left arm underneath the right. Bring the shoulder and the outside of the head all the way to rest into the ground. Right hand or forearm anywhere at your side, resting or pressing into the ground, helping to press you back towards your shoulder. And just staying with that full breathing. As your left fingers are reaching out towards the right side of the room, you also might let that left shoulder draw, or to the right side of the room, you might let your left shoulder just draw opposite back towards the left side of the room. So lengthening that arm out in space in two different directions. Find those last couple rounds of breath on this one. And then we can do that unwind at the end of the breath, right? Letting the right hand press to the ground, twisting your left arm up in space, breathing in, and as you exhale, coming back into your tabletop. From your tabletop, start to work back to the top of a plank position. So just coming out of the balls of the feet, lifting the hips up in space. As you get into this pose, it might feel nice just to rock a little forwards and backwards on the balls of the feet and the toes. Starting to feel into those core muscles, chest muscles, and back muscles, holding us up nice and strong. And then as you position the shoulders above the hands, tone those biceps in towards center line and create that nice length all the way through the back of your neck. Stay right here, or on an exhale, just come halfway down to Chaturanga Dandasana, hinging forward, leading with the sternum. We're coming to the top of the plank on that inhale, so just pressing away from the ground, lifting up with your core, and then shifting this back into our downward facing dog. Maybe your feet come in just a little bit closer. And as your hips pull back away from your hands, let your left heel pull down towards the mat as you bend your right knee, and then pull that left hip away from your right hand. So again, that left heel pulling towards the ground, bending your right knee, and letting your left hip pull away from your right hand. Spread out into the circle of your palm and your fingers, relax your head, tone those biceps in. We'll switch out the sides so your right heel pulls down, your left knee bends, and then your right hip is pulling away from your left hand. Awesome. Again, right heel pulling down, left knee bending, and that right hip pulling back away from your left hand. Add an equal bend into both of your knees and just reach the hips back up nice and tall. Tone those biceps into center line. And let the heels now start to pull down, lengthening out the back of your legs. We'll take baby steps on the balls of the feet up to a forward fold at the top of the mat. You can move up to your fingertips at any point in time. And then once you arrive, inhale to a half lift, spinal strengthening, spinal extension. So hands either pressing to your shins or your thighs above or below the knees. Spine comes out parallel to the ground. Tone those shoulder blades in towards one another. Get strong through your core. And then on an exhale, fold it forward and find a ragdoll frame, opposite hand to the outside of opposite elbow or bicep. And if you typically practice standing with your big toes together, you might take your feet out a little bit wider for this ragdoll frame. Weight of the head released. Finding a little sway side to side or a little rock back and forth. If you're working with a block today, we're going to bring it to the top of the mat in the center on level 1. You can take your left fist, fingertips, or palm to the block or to the ground, and then bend into your left knee, reach your right arm up in space, and really lengthen through your right leg. Press into the outside of that foot, down into the heel. So left knee bending, that left arm pressing to the ground as your right arm twists open, just creating a really nice stretch up along the outside of that right leg, right into your hip, and then getting that twist through your spine, up through the shoulders. On your next exhale, you can switch things out, just bringing your right hand down into the block, your fist, fingertips, or palm. Bending your right knee, lengthen your left leg, extend your left arm up in space. Your gaze is to the left. And again, you want to feel that press into the outside of the foot, that press down through your heel, and just that stretch up along the outside of that leg, all the way up into your low back, and then that big twist up through the shoulders as the left fingertips extend to the sky. On an exhale, fold it forward. You can slide the block out of the way. Keep your feet at hip bone distance or big toes together, space between the heels, vertebrae by vertebrae, wind it up to standing. Head is the last thing that stacks up. As the head comes up, inhaling to reach the arms tall. Interlace your pointer fingers into a steeple. And on an exhale, we'll shift the hips to the left as you reach the fingers to the top corner of the right wall, getting that big stretch through your left side body. Your biceps are pulling back to frame your ears. You're letting those shoulder heads slide down away from the ears on the back. An inhale lifts up tall. You could arc slightly back in space. And on your exhale, just switch things out. So let the hips shift over to the right. And then point those fingertips up to the top corner of that left wall. Just creating that beautiful stretch along the outside of the right body. And feeling that lift through your inner left side body. On an inhale, reach back up tall in space. And just take your swan dive on your exhale. Inhale to our half lift, and then plant the hands and take your step back into your plank position. You can stay here, go directly to down dog, or exhale halfway down to chaturanga, leading forward with your sternum. Press to the tops of your feet, inhale upward facing dog, and then tucking through your toes, just lift those hips back up in space and find your downward facing dog. Release the weight of the head, tone those biceps in, drive the hips back up tall in space. On an inhale, lift the right leg back up to a three-legged downward facing dog. Let that heel press up and back in space with your toes pointing down and back, so the front of your right hip bone is pointing down and back in space. Breathe in here, and on an exhale, just take the right knee over to your left elbow or a tricep. Hold the shoulders above the hands, stay with the breathing. On an inhale, extend the right leg back up tall. And as you exhale, bring the knee over to your right elbow or tricep. Hold the shoulders above the hands. Get strong through those core muscles. Feel that press and that lift. Inhale, extends and reaches back and up in space. And on your exhale, we'll bring the foot up to a low lunge position. You can walk it up. Awesome. For what I call runner's lunge, we're going to walk the right foot over to the right side of the mat. Slide your left foot a little bit back into the left. And a horizontal line at the top of your mat is the inside of your right foot in your hands. And then we're looking to drop our forearms maybe to our block on level 2, maybe down to the block on 1, or maybe all the way down to the ground. You also, depending, might feel great just up on your hands here. There is a version of this where the back knee drops to the ground. You're welcome to try that out. The one that I'm working with today is where it's more like a forearm plank, where you are holding those hips up in space, and you're using the strength of your legs and your core. And although you are pressing down to the ground, that's not the main thing that's lifting you away from the ground. That's just a secondary support to the strength of your legs and to those core muscles. We want the right knee right above the right heel in space, and then to feel spread out into all corners of that right foot. Find those last couple rounds of breath. And as you can tell, it's particularly the right elbow getting down to the ground where we find that big stretch on the inside of that right leg, on the inside of that right hip. Nice, friends. Start to move back up to your hands. If you're using that block, you can slide it out of the way. Work back into a low lunge position. And then we're just going to take a twisted low lunge, letting the right arm reach up in space. You can be down on your left hand, on your fist, or on the fingertips. Perfect. From the fist or the palm, start to work to all 5 fingertips of your left hand. Start to find the middle fingertip of your left hand. Start to hover your left hand just off the ground. Stay strong through those legs. Breathe. And then we're going to lift this up into a vertical twisting lunge so your spine comes straight up in space. Your right arm is reaching back, and your left arm is reaching forward. It's like you're going for a big hug over towards that right wall. Opening through those arms. And if we fall out of it, just come back into it. We're playing with that balance. And we're playing with that strength. Nice, Emma. On an inhale, bring your arms straight up in space, reaching a regular high crescent lunge. Excellent, friends. We're going to breathe in here, and on an exhale, just step your left foot up to meet your right into chair pose. So you might practice with your feet at hip bone distance. You could also bring your big toes, ankle bone, knees, and thighs all in its center. Our sit bones are reaching back in space. And then we're finding that lift up through our arms, maybe opening the arms up a little bit away from one another. We want to feel the tone of the shoulder blades back in towards one another for that upper spine. Core nice and strong around that low back. And then feeling that strength of our legs. And that's from the bottom legs all the way through the upper legs. And your glutes pulling nice and strong back up in space. Start to lift your heels off the ground. You're on the balls of your feet. We'll take a second vertical twist when you're ready. So an exhale takes the right arm back, brings the left arm forward. That same twist that you were taking in your lunge. The center of gravity, so think about your chest is just right over the balls of the feet. You don't need to lean super far forward on this one. Awesome, Rebecca. And let your left heel come to the ground. On an inhale, just draw your arms and your right knee up into a one-legged mountain. We want to feel that right thigh bone plugging back into the body. We're rooted down into that left foot through your big toes, spread out into it. And then focusing your gaze out in front of you on something that's not moving. Okay, friends, we have one more of these vertical twists. It's from this position. So when you are ready, letting that right arm start to reach backwards in space. And then you can connect the left hand to the outside of that right leg or continue to reach the left arm forward in space. As your gaze moves from the front of the room to the side of the room, you're going to even continue to play more with your balance. See if you can focus that gaze on an object that's not moving. And again, if you fall out of it, come back in, try again. Get down to the end of the breath. On an inhale, just reach your arms forward and up in space. And as you exhale, just bring the right foot to the ground. Draw the hands in. You could give your feet a little bit of a release, a little bit of a shakeout. From the top of your mat, an inhale takes us up into Tadasana Mountain. And on the exhale, you can hinge out from your hips and swan dive all the way into our forward fold Uttanasana. Inhale to our half lift Ardha Uttanasana. Plant the hands, take your step back into your plank. You can stay here, go right to down dog, or exhale halfway down, leading forward with your sternum, rooting to the tops of the feet. Inhale to up dog. We could also replace that with a low cobra on the belly. And then our meetup is in our down dog, our Adho Mukha Svanasana. Connect into that strength and that length in your down dog. And on an inhale, now take your left leg to the top corner of the back of the room, pressing up through your heel. Imagine if I had a yoga block behind you and I was pressing it into your foot. So the yoga block was along the length of your foot. The heel is pressing up into it. The ball of the foot's pressing into it. Take that inhale, and on your exhale, take that left knee over to your right elbow or tricep. Shoulders stay right above the hands. On an inhale, take the left leg back up tall in space. Breathe in. And as you exhale, bring the knee over to your left elbow or tricep. Shoulders above the hands. Inhale to stretch and reach back up tall in space. Breathe in. And on the exhale, we're taking that low lunge position. So you might get your foot exactly where you want it, or you might walk it up a little bit more towards the top of the mat. For that runner's lunge, just heel toe your left foot more to the left side of your mat. Slide your right foot a little bit back into the right. We can stay up on the hands with both hands on the inside of that left foot, or we can bring the forearms down onto our block on level 2, on level 1, or all the way down to the ground. So again, there is that version where the back knee is to the mat. The version that I'm going with today, which you're welcome to take that version. The version I'm going with today is where the back knee is lifted, so this feels more like a forearm plank position. And we want to remember the strength we have in that core to get those hips up in space so they're not falling down towards the ground. We're placing the hips into the pose. There's also just the strength of the legs right here that we get to use. Right on, Jordan. Awesome, friends. You can come back up to your hands, slide the block out of the way, and then just walk your left foot back into a regular low lunge position, reposition that right leg. So we're going to take this into a twisted lunge. Your right hand is down to the ground underneath your shoulder. You can use your fist, you can use your fingertips or your palm, and then we're reaching and extending that left arm up tall in space. Okay, and from the other side, you know where we're going with this. We're going to move to the 5 fingertips of the right hand, to the middle fingertip of the right hand, to where you're just hovering the right hand off the ground, and then eventually where you are tilting your spine straight up in space, and then reaching the left arm to the back of the room and the right arm forward. We want that chest right up in the center, so we don't need to lean forward through the spine. Our arms are opening up like they're going for a hug, and there's a big balance going on that involves the strength of our legs, involves those core and back muscles. Nice, cat. Inhale to reach your arms up just to find your regular high crescent lunge. Right on the ball of that right foot, the heel off the mat. Breathe in, and then we're going to step that right foot up to meet the left into our chair pose. So again, feet at hip bone distance, or if you practice with the big toes together, just line up those knees, ankle bones, and thighs all at center. Your sit bones are reaching back in space. Arms are extending up. Feeling that strength through your low legs, upper legs, right through your glutes pulling back up away. That low back, provide that strength with your core muscles. And then when you're ready, we're taking the second of these vertical twists. So you lift the heels up off the ground, you're on the balls of the feet, send that left arm backwards in space. Right arm is forward. and we're twisting over to the left side of the room. Watch that the knees aren't twisting with the chest here. If you had skis on, we want the skis to continue to go straight down the run as we open our chest to the side of the room. We don't need to lean particularly far forward. Let the right heel come down to the ground and start to draw the arms and that left knee up into our one-legged mountain. Feel spread out into that right foot, that grip through your big right toe, that left knee lifted up and the thigh bone plugging in towards the body. Last twist, friends. Send that left arm back behind you. Right arm is forward. You can leave it forward and open, or hook the right hand to the outside of the left knee or thigh. Nice, Amy. Your gaze can stay right up front if that's where it feels comfortable. You can also start to play with taking it to the side of the room and finding a new spot to focus on. Stay playful with your balance. On an inhale, come back up tall to that one-legged mountain. And as you exhale, just let the left foot connect down into the ground. Bring your hands in. We can give any little shake out through the ankles or through the feet here. And then with the feet at hip bone or the big toes together with a little space between the heels, that inhale takes us up to our Tadasana Mountain. And on the exhale, hinging out from the hips and swan diving down into that forward fold. Inhale halfway up, lengthen the spine, strengthen around it, gaze is down. Plant the hands, come to your plank. Again, your choice. If you want to stay here, go to down dog or find your Chaturanga Dandasana, your up dog, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, maybe your low cobra Bhujangasana, and then finding it back into down dog. And friends, from this down dog, we're going to bring it into child's pose, into Malasana, taking the knees out wide, tops of the feet to the ground, big toes together, and letting your sit bones move back in space towards the heels as the forehead comes to the ground with the arms out in front of you. Rooting and grounding, and allowing the weight of the body to relax as you find that deep breath. You can keep your body totally at rest for the last few rounds of breath here. You also could explore walking your hands forward a little bit till your elbows lift, and then pressing forward through fingertips or through palms or through forearms with the elbows down, but essentially lengthening your own spine out while you're in child's pose. On an inhale, come up into a tabletop, drop one of your hips to the ground, take your legs out in front of you, and take the weight down onto your back, drawing the knees into the chest as you relax the weight of the head, and just giving yourself a little rock side to side. Let's take the legs straight up in space, grab onto the hamstrings, and then pull your head and shoulders off the ground so your gaze is forward. Start to reach your arms straight up in space. Feel that low back plugged into the ground as the head and shoulders lift. And then as those core muscles really start to engage with the lift of the chest up away from the ground, find that breath inside of it. So there's that tendency as things tighten up, as things get intense, that our breath stops. See if we can keep that breath moving. Take the hands behind the base of your skull and start to lower your legs just halfway down, keeping them lengthened. Elbows are out wide. Feel that low back rooted and pressed into the ground. You can keep your hands behind the base of the skull. We could also move into the Ashtanga tradition, pressing the palms together, reaching the fingertips towards the feet, but toning the shoulder blades back in towards one another at the same time. Bending the knees, grab onto the hamstrings, and lift yourself up into your Navasana boat pose. We'll cross the ankles, and then take the outside of that left forearm, press to the outside of your right thigh, and just open your right arm out to the side so there's just a little bit of a twist over towards the right side of the room. In Navasana boat pose, we're always focusing on that length back and up through the spine, and the way that we're opening up through the chest here. Beautiful, friends. So just come back center, cross your ankles the other way, and then take the outside of that right forearm, pressing to the outside of that left thigh, and then opening the left arm up. Staying engaged in that lift in your spine. Nice patty. Beautiful, friends. Come back to the ground, and then for pose, bottom angle pose. The bottoms of your feet are together, your legs are in a diamond shape. You determine how close your heels are towards the groin, but do get to the front edge of your sit bones. So we can take that big inhale from the front edge of the sit bones to lift up tall in space. And on that exhale, just hinge out from the hips. Gaze is down. You've got the crown of the head reaching forward as the chest folds towards the feet. Hands are to your ankles, your feet like you're reading a book, your toes or the ground. Elbows could just be relaxed, or they might come to the inside of the legs and give a gentle press down. Find that deep breathing. Beautiful breathing. Nice and slow, start to lift up through the spine. Cross through your ankles, and then come forward into a tabletop position. We're going to move into dolphin, letting our elbows connect down to the ground, the forearms connect to the ground. We're creating the shape number 11. So the elbows, forearms, wrists, palms at shoulders distance. And then you could start out at a forearm plank, just taking the toes to the back of the mats. And then from that forearm plank, we can walk the toes closer up to the elbows. And eventually, once we've got the distance, we're lifting the hips up away. Head is relaxed, looking behind us, and the head is off the ground. And not because we're lifting the head off the ground, but because we're lifting the sternum back up towards the thighs. And there's a lot of shoulder strength involved in our dolphin. Both feet to the ground is a great place to stay. If you'd like, inhale your right leg back and up, just like you would in a one-legged down dog, pressing that heel up and back in space. Lower the foot down, switch it out. Take the left leg back and up if you're going for it. Awesome, Christina. When you're ready, both feet to the ground. Walk back into that forearm plank. And then we can let the hips touch down to the ground in that forearm plank. You'll just reposition the elbows a little bit to find the Sphinx Pose. Tops of the feet are to the ground. And that big stretch in the low back. That length all the way up through the back of the neck. Keep the gaze center with a little bit of the length through the back of the neck, or you could twist your gaze just across that right shoulder, just having a little bit of a twist through your neck. And use your breath to help your body inside of this pose. There can be a lot of intensity in that low back in particular, and we just get to use the breathing to help work into it. If your gaze has been to the right, you can balance it out. If you haven't yet, just twisting your gaze across the left shoulder. And as we come back forward with that gaze, we're just going to sink down to the ground like laying out at the beach, relaxing the hands, the arms, the chin, the forehead. And then bending the knees, pick the feet up in space and start to slowly circle out your ankles in big windshield wiper circles, moving clockwise or counterclockwise as it feels good to you. And at times, the feet are kind of sticking more back out behind you, closer to the ground. And as you bring it in, your heels are closer in towards the sit bones. This is fantastic for that low back. And we'll just make a move to set up a shoulder pigeon for the right arm. So just sliding your body over towards the left edge of the mat. Your chest is down. Let your right arm reach to the right side of the room, palm face down. Press your left hand into the floor at your side and then roll onto your right side, relaxing the head, planting the left leg onto the right or the left foot to the ground behind the right leg with your knee up in space. Left hand or forearm can be anywhere at your side, pressing to the ground, opening and twisting the chest. Or you can bring the hand back behind you to your low back. Find that breathing. If you'd like to create a quadricep stretch with your left leg here, you can bend that left knee, bringing the heel in towards the sit bone, and then just taking the left hand back to the top of the foot or the ankle, and finding just some gentle engagement of the hand pulling as the foot and leg kick. Pointing the knee maybe a little more up, down, or back. For the last couple rounds of breath, it might feel nice to extend the left leg straight up in space, and your hand could go to the inside of the thigh, calf, or peace on fingers to your big toe, or hand to the foot. And then eventually, friends, we'll just roll back onto the stomach on the left side of the mat. And shift your body now over to the right side of your mat with your chest to the ground, your chin to the ground. Extend that left arm to the left wall, palm face down. Press the right hand into the floor at your side. And just take that roll now onto your right side body. Rather, onto the left side body. Right leg can plant right on top of the left leg. Or just take the foot to the ground behind that left leg with the knee up in space. Weight of the head just stays relaxed. If you were into that quadricep stretch on the other side, you haven't found it yet, just bring your heel towards your sit bone and the hand at the top of the foot or the ankle. And again, just find that gentle engagement. Last option would be extending that right leg straight up in space. Your hand can move to the inside of the thigh, calf, or peace on fingers to the big toes. And then eventually you can roll onto your stomach, centering yourself onto your mat. Taking a press up into your tabletop and letting your hips come down to the ground, swinging your legs out in front of you. Walk those heels up towards the top of your mat. Find some dorsal flexion in your feet with your toes back in towards your shins, and then walk your sit bones slightly back. You're on the front edge of them. And inhale, lengthens the arms up tall in space. And then on an exhale, hinge out from your hips. And you can connect your hands to your ankles, shins, to the feet, to the toes. We can keep bend in the knees here. We can also subtract bend in the knees as it works for you. Over the course of holding this, at times it might feel great to let the gaze just relax down to the ground. And the crown of the head extend forward out from the hips. Or at times it might feel great to lift the gaze up and let the chest and the heart reach towards the front of the room, finding that stretch in your low back and that lift through your shoulders. Or even feeling yourself just lean a little bit out to the right or sway a little bit to the left, finding some different angles in that stretch. Take a deep inhale and then just a sigh out of the mouth on that exhale, letting it go. And start to wind the spine back up. Inhaling to reach the arms tall in space, breathing in. And on the exhale, just taking the hands down into the heart center. Bring the hands underneath your shoulders, back behind you. Your fingers are pointing forward, and then take a little opening through the heart here. So we could plant the feet to the ground, start to lift the hips up, or keeping those legs extended, you can start to lift the hips up, pointing out through your toes. Feel that lift up through the hips here. You can keep your chin right in towards your chest with your gaze slightly up. There is that opportunity to open back through the neck as well. Before any love is lost, let the hips return down to the ground. Slide the legs out towards the top of your mats. We'll make our way down onto the backs, and this time we'll be down on our backs all the way up into the end of our class. Start just by bringing those knees in, wrapping your arms around the knees, the shins, letting the weight of the head relax, and just giving a nice rock side to side. And then plant the feet down to the ground. So at hip bone distance, until they're underneath your knees. You can take the triceps down into the ground and close in towards the rib cage, and pressing into your feet, your triceps, elbows, the shoulders, and the head. Lift the hips up in space, but let those shoulder blades just come in a little closer, step in a little closer towards one another, making this nice shelf for your heart. Any variation you want with the arms, feel free to take. A nice default is just triceps to the ground, and then elbows bent at 90 with the hands reaching up in space. Awesome, Joy. And just finding that breathing, watching the rise and fall of the breath. Vertebrae by vertebrae by vertebrae. Slowly roll down into the ground. And whenever you bring your hips to the ground, whenever you come out of this, we can find our happy baby. So peace sign fingers to the big toes. Letting the knees open out wide. Bottoms of the feet shining up to the sky. Your ankles stacked above your knees. Nice, Preston. Letting the weight of the head just relax. Maybe a little side to side rock. And then for reclined pigeon on the right hip, you can release the left foot to the ground and cross the right ankle over the top of the left knee. On the thigh, just close up towards that knee. Leave the foot to the ground, or picking the foot up off the ground. Interlace the hands around the hamstring or around the shin of that left leg. And just drawing that knee in towards the chest. Create some dorsal flexion in the right foot, letting the heel point to the left as the toes gently flex back to the shin. Stay still or with the head relaxed. It might feel nice just to rock a little side to side. Let the left foot come to the ground. And then just extend the right leg flat out in front of you. Start to draw the left knee up towards your left shoulder, just wrapping your hands around the shin. Taking a deep breath, and then on that exhale, we can let the right hand pull the left knee down over to the right, rolling onto the outside edge of the right hip. Left arm extends to the left, and the gaze turns out towards the left side of the room. Twisting from the tailbone all the way up through the crown of the head. Roll on to the back, bring the knees to the chest, wrap your arms, and give yourself a little rock. Let that right come to the ground and send the left ankle over the top of that right thigh, close up towards the knee. Interlace your hands around the hamstring or shin on the right leg, pulling the knee in towards the body. Create dorsal flexion in the left foot. Your knee can gently flex forward. You can also just leave the right foot to the ground as well if you don't want to pick it up off the ground. The weight of the head relaxed. It might feel nice just to give a little side to side rock here. Let that right foot come to the ground and extend your left leg out in front of you. Bring the right knee up to your chest. Take a deep breath in. And then on your exhale, your left hand can just draw your right knee down over to the left. Right arm reaches to the right and the gaze just twists out across those fingertips. And we're just allowing that breath just to work its way through our spine. Friends, as you come out of this last twist, just draw the knees into the chest and give yourself one last rock on the back, massaging out the hips, the sacrum, the low back. And then we'll move into our final resting pose, our corpse posture, Shavasana. You can add on any layers of clothing to keep yourself warm. Use any of the props, blankets, bolsters, or blocks. We've been using this breath of victory that we talked about. Just breathing in that oxygen, consciously engaging with that, taking out your carbon dioxide, giving it back. As we let go of the breath of victory here, we let the body take back over, we get to creative surrender. And the surrender gets used. This isn't losing. This surrender is where we are letting ourselves release into the ground. We're feeling the weight of our body relax. This is that surrender and that release into what holds you, into what supports you. Into that trust through the unknown. Nice and slow, just start to bring some life back into your body. Wiggling your fingers, your toes. You could stretch your arms back overhead, rolling out the ankles and the wrists, reaching from the front of the room to the back. then just roll the weight of your body onto your side into a fetal position. Curl up, relax, and just find a deep round of breath or two. We'll meet in a cross-legged position or whatever pose works best for you to complete your practice with. You can keep your eyes closed just to keep internalizing that experience. Wherever you're at, if you haven't yet, just find some of that length through your all of the shoulder heads down away from the ears on the back and feeling that length all the way up through the back of the neck. It's been a pleasure practicing with you today. The light in me greets the light in you. Much love. Namaste.